Her performance has like a dark gray blue eye in I Know Places, and then in Clean it later changes to bright blue eyes. And in the tour video,
amazing! I've got to tell someone about this! Hey all you people, hey all you people, hey all you people, won't you listen to me? Skibbity beat about a boot about a daddy now, yeah! Thank you.
Welcome to New York. It's been waiting for you. Welcome to New York. Welcome to New York.
hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for checking the video out. Don't forget to check out the Google Doc and the Spotify playlist, the other YouTube videos, as well as my Tumblr and Instagram. Today we're going to be talking about the first chapter of Kaylor. So Karlie and Taylor, and we're going to go through some more of 1989, and let's just jump right into it. So we already know that Karlie and Taylor have at least met or hung out by this point. So just to recap, Taylor and Karlie both attended that Roberto Cavalari's 40th anniversary party, and they might have met at this point, maybe not, but they were definitely both in attendance, and that was in late September of 2010. So September 29, 2010, and then 7 months later in May 2011, Karlie and Taylor probably met by this point. They had the Met Gala in May of 2011. Then a couple months later in September of 2011, they went to the Rodarte Spring Fashion Show in New York, where Taylor attended with Anna Wintour and Karlie was walking in it. And Taylor at the time gave an interview and mentioned Karlie Kloss, saying how she wants to bake cookies with her. Then a few months later in January of 2012, that interview went on the cover of Vogue, and Karlie took notice and tweeted at Taylor, hey Taylor, you know, your kitchen or mine. They've at least been in passing, if not already met, if not already hung out, probably developed a crush on each other. So then August of 2012, Karlie does an interview with Teen Vogue, mentions Taylor Swift again, saying how she wants to have her on the show that Karlie was doing at the time. And then a year later, May of 2013, Karlie and Taylor meet up again at the Met Gala again, and that's when they probably hang out as well. So they've been in passing at the least since 2010, so it's been about 3 years now. Just as friends or acquaintances. And then November of 2013 comes, which is the Victoria's Secret New York fashion show. That's when they officially met, like at rehearsals. And this takes me back to the line in Paper Rings where she says, the moon is high like your friends were the night that we first met.
Excitement! And so gorgeous. Taylor is this all-American girl. She's like the American dream, and I think we're gonna have a lot of fun.
And I'm not sure if it's like a play on words, like the night that we first met, because they did go to more than one Met Gala, like together. The Secret Fashion Show in New York. She's friends with Lily Aldridge, and that's how she was able to get the spot. Not to mention, it's the inspiration for the famous line, "You two are dancing in a snow globe round and round, and you are in love." So then the next day after the Victoria's Secret Fashion Show, November 14th of 2013, Karlie posted a clip of the show on Instagram, to which Taylor replied to, "You are perfect." The interview with Karlie later on, December 10th, confirmed that they had already been hanging out and had strong ties with each other for about 4 weeks. This is also the time when Taylor gave up on moving to London, where Diana was actually spending a lot of her time, and chose to move to New York instead. So then, you know, later on in February of 2014, during a Cosmo Live session, the conversation turned into Karlie talking about Taylor for about 2 minutes. November 14th of 2013, Karlie posted a clip of the show on Instagram, and Taylor replied, "You're perfect." And then that same day, Karlie also posted a pic of flowers on Instagram, and she captioned it with, "Nothing better than receiving your favorite flowers from the person you love." And then November 21st of 2013, Taylor posted a video of Meredith in her kitchen in, I think, Los Angeles. And then that same day, she also posted a tweet talking about listening to Hold On by Colby Kaye 45 times a day on repeat. And if you look at the lyrics of the song Hold On by Colby, it's actually pretty sad. So you can see she's still probably grieving Diana and not really over it. Somewhere between November 19th and November 25th, she posts another picture of her house in LA, and it's a chalkboard that says, "I'm a slave to my emotions, to my likes, to my hatred of boredom, to most of my desires." From F. Scott Fitzgerald from This Side of Paradise. And then the next thing she posts is another quote from F. Scott Fitzgerald's book, This Side of Paradise. It says, "You are not. She brought one little fist down onto the other. You are a slave, a bound, helpless slave to one thing in the world, your imagination." This Side of Paradise is mentioned a lot in Taylor's life at this time, and Paradise was also written on the tour jacket that she promoted Reputation tour with. And so I'm not sure how it fits in or what the significance or meaning of it is. Feel free to discuss down below in the comments because I'm really curious. But I just want to make a note that it's pretty important. The next thing she posts is a picture of her bangs with her headphones on. So she is kind of alluding early on that she needs a haircut. Then November 24th of 2013 is the AMAs in Los Angeles. This hangout, whether it was the AMAs or around the AMAs, I pulled from the lyrics of Delicate, Dive Bar on the East Side, Met You in a Bar from So It Goes, Got Drunk and Made Fun of the Way You Talk from Gorgeous, One Look, Dark Room from You Are in Love. And that's what I think that like hangout is. I think all of those little lines from all those songs are describing like their liking to each other, like a serious like, you know? And so Taylor also does an interview at the AMAs saying that she's working on the next album already. Bruschetta says that they have 7 songs for it.
Thank you.
And she also talks about like not caring about genre. So she's already alluding that she's probably going to do like a pop album. And so this is when I perceived Gorgeous to be written. And sometimes I think it was written like May 2012, since that's when she like met Karlie and was dating Diana at the same time, or at least some of it. But I think it probably would have been finished by this point, late 2013. When she was with Diana at the time in May 2012, I think that's the line of, I got a boyfriend, he's older than us. I haven't seen him in a couple of months. Because remember, Diana was on the Glee tour at the time, and Taylor was writing Come Back, Be Here. But what I'm not sure about is the line, unless you want to come along. Because I'm not sure if that's like Taylor telling Karlie to come along back with her to LA to hang out, or if like Karlie speaking to Taylor. I'm not sure what context of Unless You Want to Come Along is, because Taylor does mention like going home alone with her cats, and she's like, unless you want to come along. And I perceive that she would be talking, it might be like at the Victoria's Secret fashion show, Taylor's like, oh, I guess I'll just like go home with my cats unless you want to come along, Karlie, like back to LA with me. And that might have happened. I mean, they had been, you know, meeting and friends, you know, acquaintances since before that time. But who's to say? Because I think it was written in late 2013, but wasn't recorded until 3 years later in September 3rd of 2016. But it does mention a magnetic field, like in Lover. And it mentions touching my hand in a darkened room, like I think he knows, so it goes, and it's nice to have a friend. It mentions look at that face, like in Blank Space. And it mentions unless you want to come along. So I think that that's probably alluding to Taylor taking Karlie back to her house in LA. I mean, I'm not sure which house, but I assume it to be LA, since not too long after the Victoria's Secret fashion show, Taylor did post that picture of Meredith in her LA kitchen. The original lyrics of Gorgeous, remember, were, I go through phases when it comes to love, I'm nothing that you want. And the other lyric is, you're so gorgeous and I ain't just talking about your face. And I'm so curious, what's it like making me feel this way? You can see in the Taymoji and Gorgeous that when it says Sunset and Vine, it is like separated and both capitalized. So I think that we were right to say that they were street names. Another Taymoji in the Gorgeous pack is, what is joy without sorrow? I think maybe Karlie is a joy and Taylor is a sorrow, and Karlie kind of brings out the joy in Taylor, and it seems more joyful compared to Taylor because Taylor's still kind of going through it because of what happened with Diana. Not to mention that people from the secret sessions, apparently, I don't know if it's true, but at the Reputation Secret Session, people were giving different stories of how the voice memo of Gorgeous came to be, which we perceive as Taylor to just have been lying. Also, not to mention that in the Gorgeous lyric video that there are pink triangles everywhere, and that's my puppy. I think he just like doesn't like me talking too much. He's like trying to relax. So anyway, so the pink triangle in the Gorgeous lyric video has been known as a symbol for various like LGBT identities. And not to mention in the Urban Dictionary it mentions that the pride symbol is a symbol in the gay and lesbian community. The lyric video used hot pink as a highlight color against black and white, and hot pink is a pink associated with Victoria's Secret. I also predict this is probably when It's Nice to Have a Friend is written, at least the first and second verse. And It's Nice to Have a Friend, it mentions Walk Me Home, like in Cornelia Street. It mentions a sidewalk, like from winter of 2014. It mentions a roof, like in Cornelia Street. It mentions no rules, like in This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things in Cruel Summer. It mentions Tell the Truth, like in Daylight. It mentions sunsets, like Wildest Dreams. It mentions Touch My Hand, like Gorgeous. It mentions Call My Bluff, like Endgame. And she gave an interview later on about It's Nice to Have a Friend when Lover came out. She said, "At the end of the day, we've been searching for that since we were kids. When you had a friend when you were 9 years old, Mary, and that friend was all you talked about, and you wanted to have sleepovers, and you wanted to walk down the street together and sit there drawing pictures together, or be silent together, or be talking all night. We're just looking for that, but endless sparks as adults." And I want to mention that Sparks is also mentioned in I Think He Knows. And I think the last verse was probably written years later when she was going through that tumultuous time in 2016.
Did you have a favorite part of the show?
One of my favorite parts was actually Taylor. I'm a big Taylor Swift fan. I thought she rocked it. She rocked the one way. She is the sweetest girl, so down to earth. I was really pleasantly surprised by how nice and normal she is. So
We saw you guys dancing a little when you were on the runway together, and that was such a little girl crush moment for us. So were you guys friends before? How did that come about?
no, we met at the show. We'd never met before, but we're BFFs now. No, we really are. We've hung out since, and she's really nice. But you know, again, I was just so, I don't know. It was nice to meet another American girl, sort of we're the same age, you know, and she's so inspiring for, you know, she's so talented, but she's so true to who she is. She's very, you know, she's a cool girl, and I'm glad she was in the show this year because she rocked it.
Tell us what it's like hanging out with her one-on-one, because this just sounds like a dream date come true.
You know, we're both just normal, I guess. At the end of the day, we're normal girls, you know, and so I think that's also the special thing about the Victoria's Secret fashion show is that, like, as an American girl, you watch the show, like, with your friends, with your sisters. I know I did, and Taylor was the same, and so to be a part of it, to be in it, is a dream come true, and so we just had fun with it.
So then November 26th of 2013, she's in London with Ed. And I think that the verse in King of My Heart really describes the scene and where she's at mentally now, when it says, "I'm perfectly fine, I live on my own, I made up my mind I'm better off being alone. We met a few weeks ago, now you try on calling me baby like trying on clothes." And so they like met, you know, like at November 2013 officially at the Victoria's Secret fashion show, and by this time it's late November of 2013. So I perceive this as being like we met a few weeks ago. And now you try on calling me baby like trying on clothes. Not to mention Karlie is a model, and so she tries on clothes a lot. I also think that this is probably where the line in Delicate comes from too, when it says, "This ain't for the best, my reputation's never been worse, so you must like me for me. We can't make any promises now, can we, babe? But you can make me a drink." So I think this also alludes to the fact that, like, we can't make any promises, but we can just drink. And drinking is also mentioned in Getaway Car, and This Is Me Trying. I also think this is probably the line of no one has to know what we do. Her hands are in my hair, her clothes are in my room, tangled up with you all night. So I think all of these lines in this song kind of like set the scene for the beginning of Kaylor. And I think the way that a lot of these songs are written were kind of just like, the first verse was like the beginning of Kaylor describing all of it, and then like the second verses were like Kaylor like moving on like through time, and then the bridges are just like how she felt at that time when that album came out. That's just how I perceive it to be. Now I think is the experience of Welcome to New York. I think it was written late November of 2013. Welcome to New York. So the secret message in Welcome to New York is we begin our story in New York. So I think it was written before moving to New York. And so I imagine it's written like Karlie is speaking and showing her around New York. Taylor gave an interview about the song Welcome to New York, and she said, even if you're not writing about your own life, driving through the West Village at night and seeing a couple kissing in the street or someone fighting outside their apartment, or you see so much humanity on a daily basis, then even if you're not inspired by your own life that day, you can be inspired by someone else's life. Like emphasizes Broadway and West and 42nd Street, which are intersecting near Times Square, which is just a popular place in New York City. Taylor goes back to the Red Tour late November 29th through mid-December of 2014. December 3rd of 2013, she's in Sydney, Australia, and she says how she played 3 shows, but she says how she actually feels like she's putting on like better shows. And then December 3rd of 2013, that same day, Karlie posts about Taylor. December 10th, a week later, she posts again, and she says, my girl, Taylor, killed it in the fashion show. So by this time, they're already like, they're like in a relationship or at least dating, you know. December 13th of 2013, Taylor turns 24, and then she returns from the Red Tour the next day. And this is when I perceived the lyric of back and forth from New York, sneaking in your bed from daylight. And I also think King of My Heart might have been written here as well. Low-key Fangirl on Tumblr actually did a song analysis, and they said that they think that it reveals a huge turning point in Karlie and Taylor's relationship. Now, you try on calling me baby like trying on clothes, that's the tone that follows through to the rest of the song. Materialism. Taylor and Karlie must have at one point really discussed things in terms of their relationship versus the material things they get from their bearding and careers. Picture the bridge to be like an actual conversation that started the song of King of My Heart, like the subject of it all, questioning the seriousness of it all and that things are changing. I also think Diana and Taylor's relationship was a lot of materialism and status as well, and it makes sense to really ask yourself how serious is something without all that when your previous relationship was that. And it still made you feel great things. When I talk about Taylor and Diana's relationship being materialism, I'm thinking of Blank Space and that interview she gave about new money. I also noticed that in King of My Heart it says broken bones are mending, which is mirroring later on cracked her bones and why she disappeared. The original lyrics of King of My Heart also mention salute to me like the American dream, and Karlie gave an interview about Taylor being an American dream as well. So fun fact, the English word king actually derives from a Proto-Germanic word, which was likely technically gender neutral and meant ruler. Throughout history, various women have also been crowned as king. Not to mention, Ruler of My Heart was in the Tamoji in Wonderland. July 1st of 2018, years later, Taylor Nation actually posted on Instagram an image of the crowd at one of Taylor's concerts with the caption, "Taylor is the queen of our hearts." And you can't go and find it now because it appears to have since been deleted. But on the internet, you know, nothing ever really goes away. So maybe you'll find it. I haven't been able to find it yet. I also think that after writing this, she probably wrote clean. So the secret message in Clean is she lost him but she found herself and somehow that was everything. So in King of My Heart she says, is this it? Is this the end of all the endings? And I think that she's kind of like realizing like I can fall in love again. Like I can like people again. People like me also. I think I'm finally clean. It mentions butterflies like it does in Everything Has Changed. And it also mentions silent screams like it does in This Love. It mentions storm like in King of My Heart. Not to mention in Cornelia Street, storm sounds are at the end of the song, making it sound like the storm is coming, as well as Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince. And in Clean, the tour performance has like a dark gray blue eye in I Know Places, and then in Clean it later changes to bright blue eyes. And in the tour visual, Taylor actually wears a white dress while the rainwater substitutes for a bridal veil. And I just thought it was really symbolic considering Taylor almost got married to Diana. Not to mention it also mirrors Diana's pose on Tumblr. There's also a rainbow in the Tamoji of Clean, which I love that for her. January 6th of 2014, Taylor's looking at New York apartments. She says, "I've decided I want to look at places in New York. I know I went through this phase months ago, but it has to mean something that it's circled back to it, right?" So this is interesting to me because by this time, I think she would have written Clean and King of My Heart, and she's like falling for Karlie, and she's like at least like seeing Karlie, if not seriously, then just, you know, casually. So I think at this time she's like dating Karlie, if not seriously, then casually, and she seems to be on an uplifting mental state concerning love. But then January 6th of 2014, right as she's about to go look at apartments in New York, deciding she's going to live where Karlie lives, she mentions that dating is awful and love is fiction or a myth, and that she's over it all. I want to also note the lyric parallel between My Love Had Been Frozen and Dancing With Our Hands Tied, and The Wine Is Cold, like the shoulder that I gave you in the street in Paper Rings. And in Call It What You Want, she mentions how Karlie built a fire just to keep Taylor warm. And in Dancing With Our Hands Tied, she also mentions deep blue, but you painted me golden. January 8th of 2014, she was spotted viewing property in New York. Karlie had been living in New York for 2 years now. Technically, Karlie Place is a multi-level apartment in West Village, and the third level is actually the master's bedroom. And the third level being the master's bedroom in Karlie's apartment reminds me of Long Night with Your Hands Up in My Hair, Echoes of Your Footsteps on the Stairs, Stay Here Honey, I Don't Want to Share. Third floor on the west side, me and you. Yeah, pretty sure Delicate was written before 2014. We think that Karlie went to Andrea's birthday party in January of 2014 because during the secret sessions in 2014, fans reported that there was a picture of Karlie, Taylor, and Andrea with the cake hanging up, and they were all in winter attire. So we believe that because Andrea's birthday is in early January, this picture was taken at the party. That's probably when Taylor said, like, unless you want to come along. I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure if Taylor said unless you want to come along after the Victoria's Secret fashion show. I'm not sure if Taylor said unless you want to come along at some point, you know, later on, bringing Karlie back to LA. I'm not sure if Karlie said that to Taylor. I'm not sure if Taylor went apartment hunting and then said, oh, I guess I'll go home unless you want to come along to Andrea's birthday party in LA. But it was said somewhere. So then Ryan Tedder actually gave an interview saying that one day in early 2014, he was walking down Abbot Kinney Boulevard in Venice, California, when he got a call from Taylor. She wanted his help on her new album, and the energetic Tedder knew it was a match from the start. If anyone else's bloodstream has trace amounts of Red Bull, hers does, he says. She told him that she loved the 80s and she wanted snapshots of every era of pop from her life. Most important, Swift said she wanted him to ditch every notion he had of her sound. There's no country on this album. Pretend I'm this new artist who just needs to make this album that defines her career. And this was early 2014. I perceive this to be January of 2014 because January 22nd of 2014 is when I Know Places was doing touch-ups in production. Now, January 23rd of 2014 is when touch-ups and productions were being done on Welcome to New York. And so I think early January of 2014 is when Taylor really knew that she wanted to do a pop album doing 80s synth sound. So she had been thinking about it for a while. Now, January 23rd of 2014, she does Welcome to New York production. and it's clear that she wrote it before moving to New York. So I imagine it being written like Karlie's speaking and showing her around New York. And she mentions being inspired by other people's lives. Ryan actually gave an interview about it as well, and he said, I thought we were going to walk in and start something from scratch because that's what I was used to. Then she calls me and says, is it cool if I already have an idea? And so I want to mention that she told Ryan that she just moved to New York when she hadn't even signed a contract yet to like find a place and live there in New York, which just shows that she's really committed to living in New York, being in New York, and being by Karlie's side, which I find interesting considering she just wrote that line a couple weeks ago in her Lover Diary entry about love being a myth. So she probably still thinks Karlie is kind of just like a casual friend that she's dating, but important enough to live near. So then January 25th of 2014, she's in LA, she says, and she just like feels really good about her music. You can tell in her diary entries that she feels better and more confident about her performing, her music, her body. She's just more uplifted than she was previously, and I think a big part of it is owed to Karlie. And I think this is where the scene is set of Card Sharks from Cornelia Street, as well as Loved You in Spite of Deep Fears that the World Would Divide Us and Dancing with Our Hands Tied. I also think this is when Delicate was written. I think Delicate was actually written in early 2014. So in Delicate it mentions bar, like in So It Goes in Cruel Summer. It mentions Things We Do, like in Ready For It, and Wildest Dreams. It mentions the West Side. It mentions Handsome, Hands in My Hair, like in Wildest Dreams. And it mentions Dreaming, like in Wildest Dreams and Ready For It. But it also mentions I Want You, like in I Think He Knows. Third floor on the West Side is, of course, Karlie's 3-story West Village apartment.
We've thinking a lot about the concept of a reputation, because I knew very early on I wanted to name the album Reputation. It was one of the first things. So there are a lot of like kind of like I'm angry at my reputation moments. There are like, I don't care about my reputation. I'm fine, okay? I don't care. And then there are these moments where it's very like, oh my God, what if my reputation actually makes the person that I like not want to get to know me? Like, oh no, that's a reality that could happen. Like, and so when I was thinking about that part of it, where like your reputation, you're like, how real is it? Well, it's only real if it stops you from getting to know someone where you feel like you could connect with them in a really real way.
I also want to mention that in the music video, her hairstyle is red era hairstyle and her lips are red. And blue is a really important color here. And I think that it's kind of an homage to Deep Blue, but You Painted Me Golden. And in the music video, you can also see that the bellboy is dressed in red and being all over Taylor. And I think this is kind of a depiction of the disgusting DJ that assaulted Taylor in Colorado on the Red Tour. Also in the music video, Delicate is track 5 on the Reputation track. And when the people are lined up at the bar at the end of the music video, person number 5 resembles Karlie a lot. So then I think at this point, Taylor's just like, it's delicate. Like, this isn't for the best. You can make me a drink, but I do want you. It's just delicate. And I think at this point, Karlie's like, let's get out of this town. Like in Wildest Dreams, he said, let's get out of this town. And so I think this is where I Think He Knows is written. I Think He Knows, I think the song I Think He Knows is talking about the conversation they have preparing to go to Big Sur in 2015, early 2015. So in the Lover Secret session, she says, basically I was playing around with the idea of quiet confidence. There's something so sick about quiet confidence. Somebody who, they're not arrogant, they're not cocky, like, that's obnoxious. But there are certain people who just walk in, and they don't need to be arrogant, because there's something about them, beaming from within them that they probably aren't even in control of. And when you meet a person like this, you're like, why do I want to walk over there and talk to that person? I can't explain it, but I think it's this quality. It can be a really shy person. It's not like you gotta be loud. Some people just seem like they know who they are. They don't need to brag about it. But I think that that's such an interesting quality because I can't really explain it. And so I wrote a song about that. I mentioned a street called 16th Avenue, and that's a street in Nashville where I used to write songs. The songwriting and publishing houses are on that street. So if you're wondering if I just picked a random number, I didn't. I don't know what the significance of picking that street is in the song. I think he knows. He's got my heartbeat skipping down 16th Avenue. Like Songwriter Avenue? I'm not sure. But, and I think he knows, I think he knows as a conversation about planning the trip to Big Sur. It mentions a heartbeat skipping, like in So It Goes. It mentions I Want You, like in Delicate. It mentions stay, like in Delicate. Stay here, honey, I don't want to share. It mentions bless my soul, which is religious undertones, like in Don't Blame Me, as well as other songs like False God. It mentions alone, like in So It Goes. It mentions in the dark, like Gorgeous in So It Goes. It mentions go there every night, which at this point I think Taylor was at Karlie's every night in early of 2014 while she's apartment hunting and going back and forth from New York on tour. I also think this is when Wildest Dreams was written because the conversation to go to Big Sur probably also had to include he said let's get out of this town, and the secret message in Wildest Dreams is he only saw her in his dreams. In Wildest Dreams it mentions handsome and Taylor gave an interview saying it was a song about a place I was in. It was a song about a place I was in my life where I was fatalist. I had a fatalist idea of love, and I was clearly in a very bad mood, and I was like, love just ends. It was not a question of if we break up, but when we'll break up. It was one of those days, but it was a good song out of it. Now remember a few weeks prior, about a month prior, she wrote in her Lover Diary entry that Wildest Dreams, I think, was also a song that was originally written with you pronouns instead of he pronouns. Produced a 1990 film called White Hunter Black Heart, which I think describes Taylor and as the local animal tracker Kivu is killed protecting him from an elephant Wilson decides not to shoot. The music video is an interpretation of an interpretation, basically. I also want to mention that the giraffe in the Taymoji for Wildest Dreams looks very feminine. The long hair and the eyelashes. The giraffe is captioned, he's so tall and handsome as hell. Okay, Taylor. Do the girls back home touch you like I do is Karlie speaking to Taylor. Also, imagine this is probably when The Archer was written, but I did put a question mark next to it because I'm not sure, but I think this is one of the points where it might have been written. So, Wildest Dreams is all about, like, I like you, but this is probably going to end soon, and, you know, I'm just fatalist. And The Archer is going through why she's fatalist and why things are just getting old at this point, and she really wants to combat it because she is probably falling for Karlie. So in The Archer, in the City of Lover concert, she said that she wrote this song about if you've ever been hurt before or feel like you can't trust a good feeling, which is the entirety of Red. How Diana hurt her over and over, and it caused Taylor to have anxiety of whether she could trust a good feeling or not. Ugh, which is so relatable. So relatable. In The Archer, it mentions hold on to you, like in New Year's Day. It mentions smoke, like in Daylight, as well as the room burned down, like in Dancing with Our Hands Tied. It mentions cruelty, like in Daylight. And it mentions pieces, like in So It Goes, as well as Arrowhead, like Cornelia. December 14th through February 1st, she is not on tour, so I think she's probably staying with Karlie and talking about the Big Sur trip soon. January 25th of 2014, she writes about the Grammys happening the next minute and the next day, and she wants nothing more than to win Album of the Year for Red. And then the next day, the Grammys, January 26, 2014, Red didn't win.
Random access memories.
And that night, she actually played her tour mates Welcome to New York. She gave an interview about her musical direction for 1989 at some point, and she said, "I woke up one morning at 4 a.m. and decided the album would be called 1989. I've been making 80s synth pop. I'm just gonna do that. I'm calling it a pop record. I'm not listening to anyone at my label." So you can tell she's been having issues with her label for a while, and she says, "I'm not listening to anyone at my label." Which, good for her. I love that for her. She also gives an interview in early 2014, and she's asked, when you feel like a guy you're dating has the upper hand, how do you change the game? And she says, the freeze out. And the interviewer's like, what's the freeze out? And she says, you don't respond to any of his texts or calls until he does something desperate, like shows up, or he calls and leaves you a voicemail. Something that makes it very clear to you that he's interested. And she's like, have you used the freeze out? And she says, I think everyone should approach relationships from the perspective of playing it straight and giving someone the benefit of the doubt until they establish that it's a game. And if it's a game, you need to win. The best thing to do is just walk away from the table. So you can tell that she's like done playing games with people, and she's really about saying how you feel when you feel it and just being upfront. She says it's winning when they come back, and if they don't, then they didn't care enough to begin with. She says silence speaks so much louder than screaming tantrums. Never give anyone an excuse to say that you're crazy. She says, one of my big goals as a human being is to continue to write what's really happening to me, even if it's a tough pill to swallow for people around me. So you can tell she's very, she's at least more and more open to the idea at this point of not caring to keep up the facade of her beards anymore. She says, I do fear that if I ever were to have someone in my life who mattered, I would second guess every one of my lyrics. By this time, Karlie is starting to matter more to her. February 4th of 2014, her Tribeca apartment is listed as officially sold. 1989 is done being written, and I think it was technically like written in a year, actually. But the majority of it, I think, was written probably in 2 months. So February 22nd of 2014, she has another Lover Diary entry in LA, talking about being in the studio with Max Martin and Johann Shellback. She probably does Polaroids for that album around this time, considering her hair is cut and the album's about to come out. And someone actually posted on Tumblr, I desperately want Taylor to explain how the "if you leave me, I'm coming with you" written on the door situation came about. And Taylor actually responded, she goes, oh, this is a good one. If Taylor actually answers this, I'm going to be floored, because I am. And I'm like, why would she do these things to us? She goes, I mean, just look at me, sitting there, waiting, all creepy, all moody, all shifty. And I'm like, just tell us what the F it means, man. And I think this is when You Are in Love is written as well. It mentions one look, dark room, and one touch, which I think is reiterated in Gorgeous. It mentions a coat, like in Welcome to New York. It mentions chain on your neck, like in So It Goes. It mentions a silence, like in This Love and Wildest Dreams. It mentions his place, like This Is What You Came For. It mentions ghost, like This Love and How You Get the Girl. And it mentions best friend, like in Dress. It also just says, so it goes. The You Are in Love emoji also depicts road trip signs, alluding to Big Sur, as well as the invisible locket and the snow globe round and round. It mentions one look, dark room, and one touch, like in Gorgeous. It mentions coat, like in Welcome to New York. It mentions chain on your neck. It mentions silence, like in This Love and Wildest Dreams. It mentions his place, like in This Is What You Came For. It mentions ghost, like This Love and How You Get the Girl. It mentions best friend, like in Dress. It mentions So It Goes. Late February, I predict like the 23rd through the 24th, I think was when Big Sur happened. And it was discovered that the place that they stayed was extremely coupley and secluded. But never mind that. Also notice that Karlie is wearing that Genius sweatshirt that Johann Shellback was just wearing in the recording session, that Taylor has also been seen wearing, so they're sharing clothes. They take a lot of coupley, secluded pictures during this road trip as well. Not to mention the infamous Daisy and Karlie misspelling Taylor's name in the sand, "My name is whatever you decide." She also captioned one of these pictures as "You can feel it in the silence," meaning "You Are in Love" had to have been written by this time, if not, is being conjured up in Taylor's mind. Because remember, Taylor played Karlie the entire 1989 album on the way to Big Sur. So I have to wonder if "You Are in Love" was written yet, if Karlie heard it yet or not. So in the lyrics for Ready For It, Taylor mentions, "He can be my jailer, Burton to this Taylor." And if you look for TripAdvisor reviews about the place that they stayed at in Big Sur, it mentions location of the Burton Taylor beach scenes in the Sandpiper. The one person said, "There's nothing quite like the Big Sur. My wife is a huge Elizabeth Taylor fan, and that made a stop at the Pfeiffer Beach." So she's always known what she's doing. And this is also around the time when she hires her new publicist, who we now know and love to be Tree. Which I perceive as the lyric, "Change my priorities" and "King of my heart." I also think this is when "Don't Blame Me" was written, because the Tamoji in "Don't Blame Me" does mention nature-related things. And it makes more sense to me when I hear it from the perspective about firing her publicist over Karlie. They said she's gone too far this time. So it mentions "Trip of My Life," which I think is just alluding to Big Sur. And it mentions paradise, like in Style. And it mentions an island in Ready For It, which is synonymous with paradise. Not to mention This Side of Paradise, which is a book that Taylor's been quoting this era. And it mentions Darkest Little Paradise. I think Darkest Little Paradise actually might be Karlie's apartment. Or if not, like Big Sur itself. It mentions Touch Me, like in Ready For It. I find it interesting that "Echoes of your name inside my mind" and "Don't Blame Me" kind of echoes. "Your name has echoed through my mind in Treacherous." But I'm not sure. A small part of me does think "Don't Blame Me" is a little bit like, does allude a little bit to Diana, because I think Diana is compared a lot to being a drug for Taylor. But I'm not sure. So then, I also want to point out the lyric, "I once was Poison Ivy, but now I'm your Daisy," because Poison Ivy is also a DC character, and Ivy and Harley Quinn are very like close friends, not to mention Harley rhymes with Karlie, and recurring allies, and they're sometimes shown as romantically involved, and Poison Ivy was revealed to be bisexual. And some comics picture her as more plant than human, breathing carbon dioxide and requiring sunlight to survive, which we all know sunlight is what describes Karlie Kloss. Now, the daisy symbolizes different things. So it symbolizes true love, because each daisy flower is really two flowers blended together in harmony. And the sender can keep a secret, because keeping a secret is one way a person can exhibit that they truly love another. And it's strongly affiliated with the power of the sun, which implies a symbolic meaning of daisy connected with the solar attributes. March 1st of 2013 is the Weinstein Company's pre-Oscars party that Karlie and Taylor go to together, and they take a bunch of pictures. But one picture I find very interesting is one that they take, and she just looks like she has a secret to keep, and we all just want to know what it is. Not to mention, Karlie's Instagram post that night is a little black magic. So she's wearing black, she mentions magic, and then in Taylor's Instagram post about it, she says, "This weekend was like ... And both of those captions actually remind me of the song "So It Goes ... All eyes on you, my magician, come here dressed in black now." Now, March 6th of 2014 we perceive to be like an anniversary date. So I think after this party is where they decide that, like, okay, we're in a relationship, so it goes. March 6, 2014, their relationship begins, and that's the anniversary. So it goes, all the pieces fall right into place. When we went from friends to this. It mentions "Wear You Like a Necklace," like in "Call It What You Want" and "Dancing with Their Hands Tied." It mentions skipping, like in "I Think He Knows." It mentions "Alone," like in "I Think He Knows." It mentions "So Simple," like in "Out of the Woods," but I think it's about Swift Run. It mentions "Jealous," like in "Gorgeous." I also equate "Jealous" with "Everyone Wants You" from Lover. It mentions "Met You in a Bar," which I kind of equate to "Meet Me in the Back," like in "Gorgeous," "Delicate," "Cruel Summer." It mentions my magician, which I equate to black magic, like in Karlie's Instagram post. It mentions 1, 2, 3, like in me, as well as paper rings. And it mentions bad girl, like in Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince. I don't know what the bridge means, to be completely honest with you. Like, I did a number on you, you did a number on me, you know, cat and mouse for a month or 2 or 3. You know, maybe it's like I mentioned you in an interview and then you mentioned me in an interview and then I mentioned you in an interview, which, like, is plausible. But I think the bridge is very interesting to think about in terms of Kaylor. And then the Tamoji is all about just magicians and puzzle pieces. Not to mention, on Urban Dictionary, where you like a necklace is commonly known in the LGBT community as a term for female sexual relations with each other. So they probably got together March 6th for sure, 2014. Cat and mouse for a month or 2 or 3, so January, February, March, or December, January, February, which makes sense because their official meeting was November. And then March 8th of 2014, Taylor actually met The National, with whom she'd actually later write Folklore with in 2020, 6 years later. Now, the document of the Tribeca apartment that was sold to her was released March 14th of 2014. And then March 24th of 2014, Taylor's in New York, and she mentions how she's all moved in to her new apartment watching Law and Order with Meredith. And then late March of 2014, she posts a photo on Instagram. She says, with the quote by E.E. Cummings that says, "For whatever we lose, like a you or a me, it's always ourselves we find in the sea," which reminds me of the quote from Clean and Out of the Woods about she lost him but she found herself, and somehow that was everything. Then late March 28th of 2014, she moved into New York officially, and it was her first apartment bought, and it's 6 floors up, which reminds me of Waiting for You to Be Waiting Below, like in Cruel Summer. It has stairs, it has a rooftop terrace, sat on the roof, you and I, like in Cornelia. And her kitchen at the time is actually equipped with appliances, limestone radiated heated floors, and a skylight and a fireplace. And since the kitchen has radiant heated floors, I think of Barefoot in the Kitchen from Cornelia Street. It also has rainfall steam showers, which makes me think of Bless the Rains from Cornelia Street, but also March's springtime rain showers. And then she starts rehearsing for the 1989 tour. Thanks so much for tuning back in for this week's episode. Next week we're going to start going into more of Kaylor, go into summer of 2014, the 1989 tour, and just dig into it a little deeper. And thanks so much for joining me. I hope to see you again next week. Don't forget to check out my other stuff, and that's all. Thanks so much. Bye.